Hello, my fellow project managers. Those of you who are just joining, we are taking a look at various questions. And I got a question in from one of our friends, Adel. And Adel says, I have a general question. And ideally I'm losing the logic behind it. Trying to get to the logic behind having the PMP listing skill assessment under EEF while personnel assessment under OPA. Can you please help me with a good logic to understand this? Thanks in advance for your assistance. This is a very, very good question. And this shows me that this student is reading below the surface. You got to read below the surface. So if I go to the book, the PMP guide, and I take a look at what Adele has chatted in here. Let me just sneak to go take a look. So the question is, yep, so she quoted 9.4.3.5. So if you guys want to follow me along, 9.4.3.5, and that's on page 344, page 344. So here it says, enterprise environmental factors that are updated as a result of the developed project team process include, but are not limited to, 1, employee development plan records and skill assessments. Those are under EEFs. You see what she's saying? Skill assessments are listed under the EEF updates. Now, if you go to 9.4.3.6, it says organizational process assets that are updated as a result of the developed team process include, but are not limited to, training requirements and personnel assessments. So Adele's question here is, why are skill assessments EEFs and these personnel assessments OPAs? That's a very good question. To answer that one, I would like to give you an assignment to go investigate. Why do you think this is? I'm curious to know if you know. Do you know why? The reason is because there is a difference between a capability to perform a service versus documentation of that ability. You see what I'm saying? The skill assessments are different from the personnel assessment records. I should have given you that one, Shri, shouldn't I have? So skill assessment, Shri says skill assessment with the training records, with the training they had during the project. Kind of in that line, there's a difference between the records. So the personnel assessments are the records, but the skill assessments are documented proof of the capability. What is the factor is not the records. You see, this is where people get EEFs muddled up, and I really wish I could expand on it a little bit more, and I have tried to do that in our course, but it is still easy to get mixed up. So let's take a read really quick. So taking a look at 342, it says under 9.4.2.7, individual and team assessments, it says individual and team assessment tools give the project manager and the project team insight into areas of strengths and weaknesses. So these are tools that you're going to use to get what is on page 343, team performance assessments. So if you read that, it says, the evaluation of a team's effectiveness may include indicators such as improvements in skills that allow individuals to perform assignments more effectively. Boom, those skills, you want to make sure that you capture the fact that this employee now has this ability to perform a job of that nature. You see what I'm saying? So there's a difference between the skill versus the documentation that assesses where an employee is. So let's see what Shri sent in here. Skill assessment with the training records, with the training they had during the project, with the team members' training records, with the training they had during the project. Yeah, so both ways. So if you have a skill, a new skill, it then becomes a factor in you being able to perform tasks on another job. But if you don't have those skills, it's also a factor that works against you. So if you have acquired new skills, for example, working with the government, a lot of government projects, not all, but a lot of them, you need to be able to provide an earned value management system and people who are earned value literate to run the earned value piece of the project. If you don't have the capability to perform earned value management related work, you're not going to get the job. So if you are now able to compute these earned value metrics, TCPI, EAC, BAC, and so on, that should be updated in employee records. So when they use this term loosely, skill assessment, they're really saying we now have documented proof that this person can do this. It is a factor. You see what I'm saying? Let's go really quick to chapter 2 and just take a look at the overarching descriptions of this section under EEFs. So if you go to page 38, this is really where the confusion comes from, because page 38 is crystal clear. Employee capability, it says, examples include existing human resources expertise, skills, competencies, and specialized knowledge. So it is the employee capability that is the factor. It is not the records that are the factor. Another example is the PMIS. They didn't list it explicitly here in this edition, but in previous editions, they would list out Project Management Information System as an EEF. And people would get confused. Why is PMIS an EEF? And I would tell them it is not the PMIS that is the EEF. It is the availability of the Project Management Information System that is the EEF. I hope that makes sense, because it does take some getting used to, for it to sink in. Other examples that throw people off on page 38 are infrastructure. Someone would say, oh, but infrastructure is a physical thing. Yeah, it's the availability of the infrastructure. If you ain't got no roads leading to the facility, it's going to be hard for you to do that project, for you to get the materials delivered, and so on and so forth. So talking about all of this stuff under EEFs, you need to understand it's the factor behind those things that is the EEF, not the things in themselves, okay? And going to OPAs, the records. The records, the physical records of the employees, that is an asset, you see? So it's the skills that's the factor, not the paperwork. But we need the paperwork to encapsulate that they've got those skills. So I hope that helps, Adel. If you still have some questions, do let me know. Shri says, yes, that's also a very good point. Shri says skill assessments, you don't have any control over the outcome of those assessments. So an assessment that says employee X has anger management issues, still, you're not going to be able to do anything about that to change that, except they have gone through the training again and they come back having less of those issues. And I say that in jest, but it applies to any skill and any capability, okay? Thank you very much, Adele. I hope that answers your question, and I look forward to seeing you again in another of these Q&A sessions. For those of you on YouTube, don't go away. We're still here. I'm just going to hit the stop button on our webinar. Okay, so take care. Bye for now.